What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NolanTCG, and we are back here today for another deck profile, and this time, it's for Madolche. So I finally decided with the new ban list and like having the new kind of cards for this deck, I guess, we decided to take another look at Madolche. It's changed a little bit from before. I'm still not super massively into playing like traditional hand traps, I guess, like stuff that will remain engraved, simply because it turns off your Petting-Cessor. You do have other lines of play to go down if you do end up deciding to go that route. Particularly you can use like your Jelly and your Hoot Cake a lot more. However, I feel as though this version is less punishing on yourself for choosing to play a certain playstyle, which is the reason why I choose to go with this. But before we do get started, as always, please remember to drop down below and hit that subscribe button if you are new here, because we are always happy to have new people to the channel. And let's get on into the deck profile. Okay, so starting us off, we have the card that made this card good again, and that is 3 copies of Madolche Petting-Cessor. If you have no monsters in your graveyard, just a free summon. It's the reason why, despite the fact this is a blind second deck, we don't play traditional hand traps, simply because it does turn off your Petting-Cessor's ability to just free summon itself. Of course, like, you do have other ways to resolve the combo if you did. Like I said earlier, you still have like your standard ways of playing with your Hoot Cakes and your Jellies, but just simply resolving this is very, very good, which is the reason why we've decided to play it in this style. Then we have the primary normal summon for the deck, that is the Madolche. You're trying to use this to resolve searches, because it is a rotor when you summon. You're just going to want to normal summon your Madolche, get your Petting-Cessor, get the free summon. The Madolche gives you the free resource for later. I believe you open up these 2 cards, you can out a Dragoon pretty easily, as long as you can bait the negate with other cards that you have. Typically stuff like your Lightning Storm can threaten back rows, and you have like imperms to threaten other things. So if they end on like more than just a Dragoon, you typically will be able to out a Dragoon with like these 2 plus something to bait it. However, if you do open something like Salon, and you open like Madolche, something else, then away you go. Because typically that you're going to get through a lot playing with a Salon, because Salon's double summon, and it's great. Then we've got the Tribute. 3 copies of Jelly. It's every card in the deck. Just tributes itself, summons itself. Good card. You can use this, typically, I will use it to get a Hoot Cake, and then use the Hoot Cake to get the Petting-Cessor. However, you can just go straight for the Petting-Cessor if you want to do that. I just feel as though you're missing out on a free resource if you're going that route. Then we've got, after this, 2 copies of the Hoot Cake. Banish from grave to summon from deck. Of course, he does combo off very well with the Messenger Gelato. Message Gelato not once per turn. Every time you just drop it onto board, you have the Hoot Cake there, gets you that free search. You can typically recycle this 3 times in one turn if you have a full like way to get to combo. I believe like Jelly alone is the ability to resolve this 3 times, so very, very good. Then we have the final card, the Garnet. It's 1 copy of Pudding Cess. You just typically, this is what you summon off your Petting-Cessor. You do need this to be in hand or deck to summon it off the Petting-Cessor. It doesn't summon from grave. There was one point last night at locals when I could have won the match if I just decided to bounce this back instead, and I made the big mistake because I promenaded, put this back into my hand. I put something else back instead of putting this back, and I was like, oh crap, I can't use the promenade to attach this. Kind of stuffed me over. I had to like shuffle this back into deck and then access it later. Then we get into our non-traditional hand traps. So we are playing 2 copies of Nibiru because it does stay on board. It doesn't go to your graveyard. Good card. I'm only playing 2 of it at the moment, mainly because I actually couldn't find my third. It's gone missing, and I don't know where I put it. However, after playing the 2, I felt as though it was correct. Like, I played a lot of matchups where this card wasn't the greatest. Against my Drytron matchup as well, they realized that they should probably just be summoning, like, a Vanities on their 4th summon, so I was like, oh yeah, cool, I can't Nibiru anymore. That's big sad. But 2 Nibiru, probably bump this to 3, depending on what your locals is. But then after that, we've got 3 copies of Gamma and the Driver, another hand trap that's not going to go into graveyard in the end phase. If you do ever play against this deck and your opponent Gammas you or Nibiru's you, find a way to pop it if you can, because it does make their day a lot harder if they are playing this version of the deck. Of course, if they're throwing out Ash Blossoms and stuff, you don't need to worry, but if they're playing like this less traditional, like the no traditional hand traps, you just try and pop, like, typically you try and pop the Gamma, you wouldn't pop the Driver because it's a bad idea, or the Nibiru. That would then just enable you to turn off their Petting-Cessor play. Then we have our spells next, and that is 3 copies of the double summon in Salon. This lets you play through so much stuff, it's so good. Also the fact that, because your Madolche Madolche is not a once per turn, it's just whenever it's normal summoned. You get 2. So you can resolve 2 off the Salon and get a lot of pluses. Good times. Then we have 1 Chateau to shuffle everything back, and the 1 ticket. We've cut these down from 2 to 1 each because we are playing different cards in the deck. I just felt as though this was the first way to cut space. Although my opponents did realize pretty quickly that if they just get rid of the Chateau, it does make the OTK potential a lot weaker. You can still, of course, get through on the OTK. If, like, say it's turn 4, and they decide to pop this in the mid-game to try and slow you down, you can just go into a lot of Xyzes and do a lot of damage. However, the Chateau does come up quite a bit. The fact that it can, like, shuffle everything back, you just need to resolve that once if you're just trying to do a big combo. Then we've got 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Again, this card's out now, so we can use it. It's much better than Extravagance in this deck. You don't have to worry about banishing everything that's important. You only play 12 important cards anyway, so Pot of Prosperity is great. Then we have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent after that. 3, I felt as though was a little bit cloggy in the deck. This is typically, if you are playing 3 Nibiru, I would probably cut this and then go with another power card instead. However, the fact that I'm playing 2 Nibiru does free up the space to play 2 copies of Talents. Then we have, of course, 3 copies of Lightning Storm. Hits back row, hits monsters, like card forces and negations, and then you just play through with the rest of your stuff with the non-target shuffles and everything. Then, of course, we do have 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster for more back row clear out. There is the 4 cards of back row hate. Hopefully that's enough in this deck to get through anything that you're finding difficult. Back row hate is very good against Virtual World as well, so that's something to consider. Then moving into our trap lineup, we have 2 copies of the Impermanence of the deck. Promenade gets you the recovery that you need, also then gets you through with that negation. This card is essentially just Madolche Tiding. I realized like halfway through the tourney, I was like, this is just a prototype Tiding. Tiding is of course better, but this is effectively just the same thing. Both cards are very good support cards. Then we have 1 copy of Madolche Knights after that. This is one of the cards that we've put in for cutting the down the chateaus and the tickets. So Madolche Knights, just your standard monster negation, doesn't destroy, which kind of sucks. There is a way to resolve a combo that would result in you still having the pudding cess on board. You effectively need to recur it back to your hand with the Salon still in play and having your summon. Then you can then slam it onto board with your double summon on the second summon. Turns on your Madolche Knights, and then you get to rip the card after you negate the monster. Then for the final cards, finally it's back to rounding out the main deck, and that is 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Okay, next off we have the extra deck, and of course it is 3 copies of Shock a la Mode. This is going to be a very uninspired extra deck, because you typically are just going to be using the... Because you got it's a Pros build, so you're going to be playing 3 of the good cards. So you've got 3 Shock a la Mode, summons from deck when it has the Petting Cessor, or not Petting Cessor, the Pudding Cess attached to it. You typically get that from the Petting Cessor. Summons, not once per turn, just as long as you have the material, so good card. Then we have 1 copy of Queen Tiramisu. Sorry, 1 copy? Of course it's not 1 copy, it's 3 copies of Queen Tiramisu. Non-target shuffle back into the deck. This is typically how you out everything. You'll be like, go through your standard combo, get them into grave, use the Queen Tiramisu, because you do need to have a Madolche card in grave. That is important. However, it is Madolche card in grave, not monster. So if you have like just a Madolche spell in grave, or you have like a Promenade that's in there, you can Queen Tiramisu it back and the card that this attaches, and non-target shuffle 2 back in the deck. Then we have the card you use when you're going for setup and you have nothing in grave. That is the Glass Souffle. Glass Souffle is just a standard give monster protection. I'll typically, if I'm going like a Hoot Cake line, I'll summon the Glass Souffle in defense position, use the effect to target the Hoot Cake, and then like continue to combo, because then if you get Nibiru, the Hoot Cake stays on board. Hopefully that gives you enough to then restart your combos. It is probably a better idea to, if you're going a line that leaves you with a 4 on board, to target the 4 instead, because it is much more useful. However, it's just typically the Hoot Cake is still on board when you're going this line of play, so I typically would go that. Then we have the 3 copies, again, sorry, I want to say 2. 3 copies of Fresh Sistart. Your Link monster, it's not overly amazing. Does protect your spell and trap cards though. Also, you can get your material back into grave, so when you activate the Chateau, it then shuffles back into the deck to trigger the Xyz again, which is good. Then we have the final cards for the deck. We're playing 1 copy of Zeus, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, and 1 copy of Omega. I summoned the Omega once all tournament. It was actually like pretty good when that went off, because you just kind of won. The Dweller I didn't make once, although I did have the opportunities. I just felt as though it wasn't a correct card in the matchup. And then the Zeus never really got to make it because I was always resolving the Petting Cessor to get through onto big plays. But that wraps up here for the deck profile for this one. So of course, if you do have any things that you would recommend to change to the deck, comment them down below. If you do play like a more traditional hand trap lineup, make sure to like let us know what you kind of go with that. But as always, I've been Ben from NolanTCG, and have a good afternoon, everybody.